Hello and welcome to the Auto Guide Show, brought to you by eBay Motors. This week, Kyle and I talk about a super comparison we conducted. We have a special guest that's in charge of one of the biggest video game franchises, and there's a couple other little test drives that Kyle has done. But first, a word from our sponsor. Picture this. You're halfway through a DIY car fix, tools scattered everywhere, and boom, you realize you're missing a part. It's okay, because you know whatever it is, it's on eBay. They've got everything: brakes, headlights, cold air intakes, whatever you need, and it's guaranteed to fit, which means no more crossing your fingers and hoping you ordered the right thing. All the parts you need, at the prices you'll love, guaranteed fit every time. eBay, things people love. So, kicking things off, well, the biggest news on our site for the week, month, maybe the quarter, is we did another one of our super comparisons. This time it was a little different, not just because of a different class, but we actually got every competitor in the segment. We got every compact car left on the market, which is surprising that there's just 8 because a lot of manufacturers missing, but it's also surprising there still is 8 because people make it seem like there's none left. So, yeah, it was pretty. Well, I'll let you start with some initial thoughts on this.
Oh man, I think it was when we realized that we actually had the entire field. That was cool. We've never been able to do that before. And yeah, mid-size sedans. There's what, like 4 or 5 of them left. This, I think the impressive thing too is obviously we only got one example of each of these vehicles here, but a lot of them come in a lot of different flavors, right? There's still a lot of variation here. Like if you want a Mazda 3. You can get it as a hatchback or a sedan, or with all-wheel drive, or front drive, or with a turbo. And then the Corolla. There's a Civic there's a hatchback and a sedan and a hybrid. There's a lot of choices, is what I'm trying to say. And you know, one of the things that we wanted to focus in on with this was, look, everyone knows it. Cars are getting more and more expensive every year. Compact cars are too, but they're still a lot cheaper than the average SUV. And we wanted to see just how well they were to live with for a week. And it turns out, yeah, I mean, I'm not going to spoil the results, right? Or are we? Are we going to spoil the results?
Okay. We are, but if someone wants to watch it before we spoil the results, pause, please come back.
Mm-hmm.
Go watch the video on YouTube or read the article on AutoGuide.com and then come back and we will tell you that the winner was...
the Honda Civic.
I thought it was the Suzuki Esteem. Yeah.
No, that was the winner, but we just... it was disqualified on grounds of just being too good of a deal.
Yeah, so the Civic won, and going into this, we had a feeling it was a favorite, and it turns out it is. I mean, the Civic's always been a good car.
Yeah.
And at one point, it was the best compact by a mile, and dominated, I'd say, late 80s into the early 2000s. And then I'd still say it's definitely been a front runner, but this generation was such a return to form in the sense of everyone's trying to play catch up. And I would say the second place finisher, which was the Elantra Hybrid, that's what they're doing. Like, they've almost caught up. But the thing with the Civic is, so it's one of the most efficient because it's a hybrid. Mm-hmm. It's one of the most powerful on paper and in real world. It's one of the most comfortable, yet it's also one of the best handlers. It's got a ton of space. Like, it's got good tech. It's just got one weakness, and it's sort of the one we've talked about many times, and it's the price. And here it was the most expensive by a couple thousand, but it's, how do you quantify if it's worth the money? I think it's better enough than the rest that it's worth that little bit of money.
Yeah. And it's not to say that, like you hinted there, it's not to say that the Civic is perfect. There are issues. Not only is it more expensive than everything else, it's missing features that other cars have, right? Like, we don't get a 360 camera. We don't get ventilated front seats. There was something else. Oh, a head-up display. Things that, I mean, it's kind of shocking. Those are features that are available in this class now. And so we said, and we say in the video, that this was sort of kicked off because we did a comparison earlier this year with the Prius and the Civic. And in that situation, the Prius is a lot more money. And the Civic won. And so the question was, okay, yeah, it won, but maybe it's the value play. Can it really beat the rest of the pack when it's the most expensive? And it was close-ish. It was really close in the mid-pack. I think that was the really fascinating thing about doing this, is we had our suspicions that the Civic was going to win, but we had no idea how the rest of the field was going to play out. And there were some upsets, right?
Yeah, like you said, it's the first place Civic, won by quite a bit when you tally the points, and then Elantra was closer than I expected, but it too had gapped a bit. But third through sixth were incredibly close, and then seventh and eighth, which were the Impreza and Sentra. I mean, we explained in the video, the Sentra is just a data design, but it's still a really good value, and it drives way better than you expect. It's just its biggest weakness is that two is missing a lot of tech.
Hmm.
Its fuel economies, its performance is, yeah, it looks nice. And then the Impreza, it does what it's supposed to do really well, but so does the Crosstrek, which is basically a twin of it raised up, and it doesn't offer much as an advantage of a compact car that the other ones do. Like it sort of feels SUV-ish compared to the rest, which we mentioned. And then,
Hmm.
so let's talk about two surprises.
Yeah.
I am going to steal the one that surprised us on the high end because I wrote more about it, and you can talk about the one that we were shocked to finish so low.
Hmm.
So
Yep.
going into this, another one we thought we would like personally because it drives nice, Mazda 3. It's a nice driver. We got the right trim for this. We got a front wheel drive, naturally aspirated vehicle, one that matches up. Even if it's all wheel drive, it still would have been okay. And it's smaller and it's older, and we figured, mid pack because it'll be the driver's car, but it'll lack in other areas. It came third. It it has the smallest rear seat on paper, but when you get back there, the headroom's better than a lot of cars with massive rear seats. The one I can think of off the top of my head is the Jetta. I
Hmm.
would sit, and my head would be on the headliner of the three, but in the Jetta, I have to crane my head if I'm trying to sit upright. Now I could slouch more in the Jetta because there's more leg room, but that's not overly comfortable for me to be long term.
Yeah.
The interior and exterior, old, but you know what? Mazda nailed the formula from the start, and they're still some of the best in design. The
Hmm.
tech's pretty good. Like it was the only one with a head-up display in the test.
Yeah.
Um, has a 360 camera. It's one of the few that doesn't rely on touchscreen for better or worse. If you like that rotary dial in the middle, and of course it drives well. That's always been a Mazda thing. Its ride comfort isn't great, and although it has 191 horsepower on paper, sure doesn't feel like it. And the six speed, a little outclassed by some transmissions, but I mean, where I am in life with small family and this is a classic I'm definitely interested in, it would be right near the top of my shopping list.
Hmm. It's impressive because it is as old as the Sentra, but it just shows that Mazda's focus on moving a little upmarket, and especially with the interior, right? Like offering a more premium feeling interior, has done it well. So
Yeah.
I guess I should talk about the one that surprised us in the other way.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Well, so the one that we thought would do better, because whenever we've done a mega comparison, a Korean car always wins. This is the first time that it hasn't. And so we expected the new Kia K4 to do pretty well. And then it ended up sixth. Uh, it was our first time with the turbo model. And so that does fix one of the complaints that I had when I drove the naturally aspirated model last year, is that that one feels really slow. And this is not slow. This is actually quicker than the Civic.
Mm-hmm.
Quickest car here. The
Snarls
transmission is
too.
also, what's that?
It snarls too.
It does, yeah. Like it sounds sporty. It looks sporty. It has big aggressive tires, um, but it doesn't handle the way we would expect, which is a little funny because, I mean, for two reasons. The Elantra hybrid that we had was like one of the least sporty vehicles here, but it was very comfortable. And the Elantra N is a ridiculously fun sports compact. The K4 is neither. It's not comfortable, but it also isn't very fun to drive. And I think that really dulled the shine on the K4. Then it was weird interior things, right? Like the climate control panel. It's this little touchscreen that is wedged in between the digital instrument cluster and the main touchscreen. And it just makes it frustrating to do any in-depth stuff with climate. If you want to adjust the temperature, sure, it's a nice physical control on the center, but everything else is digging into a touchscreen that's partially blocked by the steering wheel. It was it was a disappointment, and it's also expensive. That was the other thing against the K4, is that it is right near the top of the class for price.
Yeah, and like I said, it's just some of the ergonomics in this space, and the rear wasn't as big as we expected, and
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's right. Like, because the front seats are mounted really low, which sounds good, except then the back seat folks have nowhere to put their feet.
yeah, yeah, it was just a, I don't know, it's sort of like trying to be too many things to too many people, and it's feels like a couple different cars combined into one.
Mhm.
Before we move on, another one we should definitely talk about is the Corolla Hybrid. It was a hybrid as well. It had all-wheel drive. Toyota's known for their hybrid, and they still make a fantastic system. But here, at least efficiency-wise, it's outdone by both the Hyundai and the Honda.
Yep.
Now, part of that's because you're carrying around a bit of extra weight of that extra motor for the all-wheel drive. But it's the all-wheel drive that only works at low speeds. It doesn't kick in at high because it's just an electric assist. But as we said, yeah, it came fourth, and I know a lot of people will complain and say, like, why does it sell so well? And it's the go-to choice. Well, we're purely scoring subjectively on what we can see and touch and feel and whatnot. I mean, probably is it going to be one of the most reliable? Yeah, but we can't really take that into account without having driven it for 4 years, which we're never going to be able to do.
Yeah.
So its shine isn't as nice as the three that beat it, but that's part of its appeal, as it is just sort of a no nonsense, sort of more plain, lower quality material here and there, but probably more durable. So it's, again, we said that the mid pack was so close. Like, its fourth place reflects that it's still a solid offering, and I'm sure it'll be one that many people will want, and it's more affordable than the Civic, so it has that going for it too.
Yeah, and I think just to put a bow on all of this, and you really touched on it well there, Mike, is look, it's not a cop-out when we say that all of these are good. Every single one of these cars we could justify recommending to people. Like, even the Sentra, for me, it's like, well, it's such a good value play and it looks good. If you don't care that much about driving enjoyment and the middling fuel economy is fine, the Sentra is a great choice. The Jetta has a really nice premium feeling cabin that you don't get unless you go with the Mazda. Like, there's something here for everyone, and I think that was the really nice part of doing this, and that's why we do the mega comparisons, right? There's nothing better than putting all these cars together at once to get a feel for them.
And I think the Jetta is the only one we haven't talked about. So quickly, the Jetta, it came fifth, which surprised us. That was one I thought wasn't going to maybe battle to win because it wasn't hybrid and it's going to have some issues with fuel economy. Although its fuel economy on the highway is tremendous. It misses the hybrid Corolla by 1 mile per gallon. But it's 8-speed. We just didn't get along with, and the front seats like really stiff like a board. Like it's unusually uncomfortable. So
yeah,
fix those two things, and I think it might pass Mazda and become third place. It would be interesting. So anyway, we should move on. We have lots else to talk about today. So the other big news this week that didn't involve us is Jeep finally confirmed the Cherokee is indeed coming back. We thought it was, we heard it was, but with what was going on in Stellantis recently and the auto industry as a whole, you had no idea. But yes, the Cherokee's coming back, and it looks like it's found a better identity. We talked on the show before how the Cherokee kind of was between mid and compact in size and price and everything, and how the Compass is kind of in between subcompact and compact. So this appears, at least initially, although we don't know all the details, it will be right in that RAV4 CR-V Forester battle.
Which is the right thing to do. Like, it's so strange to me that Jeep has spent years not having a vehicle in the most popular segment in America. So it was almost exactly a year ago that they first teased this at the New York reveal for the Wagoneer S. And they wouldn't tell us that it was Cherokee. Now it's Cherokee. And it sounds like it really is going after the RAV4 in more ways than one. It will be a hybrid. So that will be Jeep's first hybrid on our regular hybrid on our market, unless the Compass gets here first.
Yeah, and I'm curious to see what it's like, because you would assume, being a Jeep and having the Jeep name, like it would be going after Bronco Sport, maybe Forester Wilderness, more that end of the spectrum. And I'm sure there will be a Trailhawks that probably will have something like that, but it really is trying to go more to the mainstream. Whereas the Cherokee had multiple engines and options, but it always seemed like it was trying to be more of a baby Grand Cherokee or like a hardtop Wrangler alternative than a mainstream. So yeah, this is suddenly become something I really look forward to, because Jeep has some good products, and they have some that they have some segments they need to win in. So this is going to be a big deal for the brand, basically. Because Stellantis does not have a product in this class. Dodge doesn't have one. Chrysler doesn't have one. So they need something.
No, they would tell you that it's the Hornet, but I mean, that's not really a competitor. And this also looks good. I think that's the thing too, is like, this looks like properly cheap.
Yeah, like the Hornet's a great vehicle, but that's like going against CX-50 turbos. Like it's a sort of a half class up. Like it's yeah, it's
Except it's small inside.
but
That's the
it's but I mean that's the thing. Like it's not about
yeah,
the pure family practicality. It's sort of a
yeah.
more refined, sporty, the plug-in hybrid too. Like it's going against the higher end of the spectrum, whereas this looks like it's going for the heart of the market. So
Hmm.
we will see. So speaking of that heart of that market, I got to drive the Forester Hybrid. Hey, a hybrid. Uh, it was not a long drive. I got maybe an hour at most behind,
Okay.
but I got to take it on a real off-road course with just regular tires. And it's a Forester X mode. It has a dual X mode in the hybrid, so I had it in the deep mud, and it was a monsoon. If you watch the video on our YouTube page, it was muddy, and it did well. The only time it had trouble was when I was trying to avoid an obstacle, and the trail was so slippery, just wanted to slide me down the hill. Um, Took it on road. It was great there. It's basically the exact same Forester that's currently out there, which is more refined, quieter, and all that. But now with the hybrid, it doesn't give it a ton more power. It's like a couple more horsepower, about 20 more pound feet of torque. But having that initial electric surge just gives it that little bit of sort of off the line power it's missing. And in the city too, it works well. And the nice thing is it'll go into hybrid mode, or EV mode even, and you don't
Hmm.
really feel the transition between gas, hybrid, and EV. Uh, I don't know. I drove it a lot, and I did not feel any sort of sudden jerkiness or weird transitions. They did a good job, and you think, well, they've just stolen technology, so it should be fine. Well, not really. They do have Toyota's electric motor, but it goes into a Subaru CVT that is slightly updated because it has some of the different parts that are required for hybrid operation, but it's still a CVT. And then it goes into the Subaru's symmetrical all-wheel drive system. So it is different from Toyota. That's sort of a front-wheel drive hybrid eCVT with the electric motor in the back, and that's why I could off-road it, and that's sort of their
Hmm.
thing. And they say 35 miles combined, and I think the RAV4 is 39 and the CRV is 37 or 38. So it trails them, but it's also going to be more capable than either of them. And if you get, say, uh, the Woodland or the whatever the off-roady ish Toyota is,
Oh, it's the Woodland Edition RAV4, yeah.
yeah, and it drops a bit of miles per gallon, so they're much closer. So yeah, it's exactly what Subaru needs. I mean, the Forester, it doesn't solve the Forester's faults like the infotainment screen, the kind of utilitarian interior. Some people aren't keen on the exterior styling that kind of is now very anonymous, but for what feels like the most sophisticated and quietest Forester to be more sophisticated, more quieter, that's not a bad thing. And you're going to get like 40% better fuel economy, and it's a smoother driving experience. So, and in the States, it's going to be available in 3 or 4 trims. There's like 5 trims of Forester now. Like they went the Toyota approach, which I think is the most important part. It's not like the hybrids between their touring and the wilderness. It
Yeah.
starts from the second trim up, so you don't have to be tied into all this stuff.
I think this is really good. I've long said that, most vehicles out there on the market today, like if you can get the hybrid, get the hybrid. It's better than the regular engine. This sounds like more of that case of like, look, the new Forester is good. It's maybe not class leading, the regular one. I haven't driven this yet, so I can't say, but it's much better than before. It still keeps all that like great visibility that the Forester is known for, and it's easy to
Mm-hmm.
use. And it's like, yeah, now you save money all the time. That sounds like a win.
It's one of those perspective cars, right? You can take the perspective of, oh, it doesn't make as much power as the Honda Toyota hybrids. It's not as fuel efficient. It's not as nice inside. It's like, yeah. But if you take it from the other perspective, oh, it's a way more efficient Forester that's still every bit as capable as a regular one. It has like the advantages you said. It can be in any trim. And yeah, you're gonna save a bunch of money for and have a better driving experience. So yeah, it's meant for Forester owners or people that are cross shopping with the Forester. It's an option that will just make it more appealing. So
Great.
good for them.
Hmm.
Moving on to our last story of the week, Kyle got to drive another SUV with electrification.
Yes, and it looks so much better now. So I
It does.
drove the 2026 Toyota BZ, and I will reuse the first line from my written review, which is that this is probably the only car in history that has, as part of a facelift, lost 50% of its name and gained 50% more power. It is just a much better product. Honestly, I think the BZ4X, BZ4X, whichever one you want to call it, the Busy Forks, came out a few years ago. We all thought it was Toyota trying to make a bad EV because the brand is very vocally pro hybrid. It was like, oh, they're showing how bad EVs can be because they don't want to make them. No, it was a first crack, and they've taken the criticisms on board, and this fixes pretty much all of them. It has so much more range now. The big battery pack with the front drive is 314 miles, so right there with everyone else. The all-wheel drive, depending on the wheel size, is somewhere from like 275 to 290. It looks better. The high contrast arches are still available on certain trims, but this is a limited, so it's all body color. It has a new face that looks more like the Crown Signia. The interior is redone. I might have been one of the few people who really liked the fabric dashboard of the old one. It's gone, but the center console is redone. There's standard dual wireless chargers on every trim. So even like a low LE, you get that. More storage space. It's good. I can't really speak too much about how it rides because I don't know if you've been to headquarters for Toyota outside of Plano, Texas. It's not great. It's just expansion joint after expansion joint. So I can't really say about like, if there's any changes, but Toyota didn't mention any ride changes, so it should ride like before, which was fairly comfortable. This is just now a very competitive EV. The question, of course, is in the current climate, how much that really matters. You have to actually want an EV now with incentives being gone.
Yeah, it is interesting and crazy how when this and its twin, the Solterra, came out, like they were decent, but they were so uncompetitive because lack of power, lack of range, same price, some other stuff missing. And just a refresh, this isn't even an all new model, how the two companies have made them wholly competitive. Like I really now want to put one or both of these up against some of the segment leaders that we tested 2 years ago and see where it stands, because I drove the Solterra and I liked the way it drove. It was just, I didn't have quite as much power, which wasn't a big deal, but it was more the range than anything. Yeah. So,
Sorry, I just wanted to add too, you're talking about range. Charging is much better now. The charging curve is much better, and it has a NACS port as standard, including plug-in charge. So the whole experience is better, right?
Hey, and that's what can you ask for than a better overall experience?
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Well, this is the Auto Guide Show brought to you by eBay Motors. Kyle and I are going to take a break, and I'll be back very quickly with Greg to talk products. Then we will be talking to one of the heads of the Formula 125 video game, which I'm excited because I love playing those games. And then I'll be on with Colum to talk Formula 1, and then Kyle and I will wrap it up. We'll be back shortly. Swapping out your tires? There's nothing like it. With eBay, you'll find the feel you're looking for, from smooth highway rides to grip for rough terrain. Get all the tires you need at prices you'll love. eBay, things people love. All right, welcome back. This week, Greg is here, like always, and we are talking about something that, I don't know if there's many people out there who don't need these or use them.
So this is Travel Mug Week here at AutoGuide. I think it's important to have a great, trusty, reliable mug for when you're driving, taking the kids to school, to baseball practice. I need caffeine. I don't think my car starts, press car or personal car, without me having a big tumbler of caffeine. I like just straight up coffee. I don't really do the fancy stuff too much. I do like espresso from time to time. I digress. The tumbler that I want to talk about this week is the Yeti. This is the 20-ounce stainless steel vacuum one. You can get it many different places. 20 ounces is a pretty big trough, isn't quite the right word, but it's almost like a pint glass size of coffee. So it's good for a lot of different purposes. It's coffee for some people, it's coffee maybe for the morning even. It also keeps things nice and cold if you want to ice down something and put it in there. And then, hey, if maybe your kid has a practice and you could walk to it, well, hey, this could be good for another type of beverage as well. So this is like so ubiquitous right now. At school drop-off, you just see the parents holding these things. I will offer a slight variant. The 10-ounce one is a little easier as far as just kind of fitting in maybe some smaller car center consoles. and it's just a little bit of a, maybe you don't need that much coffee. So.
I think my dog agrees with you on this topic.
Yeah, that's all right. My dog's asleep, so.
Yeah, hold on a second. Let me just pause this. 4. All right, we'll snap back here. Like, all right. Okay, dog interruption over. So as you're saying, if I was a grade A podcast host, I would have been fully prepared because I have 2 of those Yeti 20-ounce vacuum mugs. Full disclosure, I got them from manufacturers on trips, but I used them almost exclusively up until the point I bought a special one at the Louisville Slugger Hall of Fame, and it has like that cork stuff on the bottom. It's really cool. But yeah, those are great. Now, to your tenant's point, those don't fit in some brand new cars. Like I remember doing some car reviews, and I've taken pictures and say like, you know, in this day, the cup holder is just a little too small. And it's funny because like 20 years ago, remember people would be like, sports cars don't have cup holders. Cup holders in cars are pointless. You don't hear that argument. Now you hear people saying we need bigger cup holders because
I think you got to.
We're just used to it. We're a drive-through society. So yeah, I fully recommend and endorse these. They don't leak. They, like you said, keep things hot or cold. They're easy to clean. Not all of them can go in a dishwasher, which is what I look for specifically. But yeah, it's an easy setup. And the top, I don't really call it the slide part. It's magnetized. So if it catches on something, it doesn't break. It just pops off and you just put it back on, which is a big plus too.
If you are, now I don't know how much like a Yeti groupie you are, but you could also get these in larger sizes, all the way up to, I believe, a 30 ounce, which is quite big. And then I have little ones. They're like, I think they're like 3 or 4 or 5 ounce ones. And it's tough to find the lids that fit, but those are great if you want to have just like a cup of espresso. It keeps it a little bit warmer than maybe just your normal, crate and barrel cup. But they're also portable, and it's kind of funny. Like if you have like a short drive where you just need a little bit of coffee, maybe again, you got to drop your kid off at school. You don't need 30 ounces of coffee. These things will get the job done. They're good for espressos, things like that. Yeah, I mean, it's tricky because a lot of, like, I've tried so many different coffee mugs and tumblers and whatnot. They say they're dishwasher safe, and they end up melting. You end up like drinking paint. You end up drinking like those rubber straps. It's not a good situation. The Yetis, by and large, do hold up over time. Some of them, the dishwasher thing gets a little dicey, but, by and large, this is like the Toyota Camry, the Honda Civic of coffee mugs for travel.
Yeah, I agree. So highly recommended. All right. Well, thank you for stopping by. And next week, we'll be back with more tips and products for all those car drivers like us out there. So thanks for coming, Greg.
I'm going to go refill my coffee right now, maybe in a Yeti. See you later.
Picture this. You're in the garage, your favorite room in the house, and you're tuning up your engine with parts you found on eBay. Every piece is just locking perfectly into place. You step back to admire your work, hands covered in grease, and because you're committed to driving that thing further than the odometer can handle, you start to think to yourself, you know what, I could probably also use some new brakes, some shocks and struts, and this baby deserves a new air filter. So you head right back to eBay. You can find any part you need there. It's unreal. From wipers and headlights to cold air intakes, exhaust systems, and even that turbo you've had on your mind. eBay is the stocked garage of your dreams, and you've got eBay Guaranteed Fit. Because eBay knows DIY fixes can be major, and mods are always intense, so you need to know that these parts guaranteed to fit every time before you dive in wrench first. And in the off chance you order a part and it doesn't fit, send it back, simple as that. You know what you love more than the car itself is driving it. You're serious when it comes to engine maintenance, and you're locked in when you're headed into a build. And that's exactly why you start with eBay, minor fix or complete overhaul. You want to get your ride back on the road, and you've got eBay Guaranteed Fit. So eBay created My Garage, where all you have to do is add your ride's info and get the exact parts that fit. When you see the green check, you're a click away from that part clicking perfectly into place. So now that you know all that, imagine standing at that open garage door looking at your car you love more than anything, knowing that anything is possible. Whether it's keeping it on the road forever or turning it into something that's never been on the road before. Because with eBay, your garage just got a whole lot bigger. Get all the parts you need at prices you love. guaranteed to fit every time. eBay, things people love. Okay, welcome back. This week we have a special guest, and he has one of the coolest jobs. So if you just introduce yourself and what you do.
Yeah, I'm Lee Mather. I'm the Senior Creative Director on the F1 games at EA.
So that's awesome. So, I mean, we're not talking some small little franchise. We're talking, one of the biggest racing franchises that puts out a new copy every year, like any sport series, because people want the up to date. So we'll talk a bit about the game, and we'll talk about sort of your love of cars, because that's what we're here for as well. So 25 just released. When people hear this, it will have released the Friday just before. So it's out now if you want to try it out and get it. I've been reading and getting all of the messages and teasers as sort of the new features. But what's the key thing that you think really stands out with this new one, or maybe key 2 or 3 things?
Yeah, I think it's the breadth of content and the breadth of experiences that the game delivers. The theme this year is that we want players to really experience stories in the game, whether that's stories that they create for themselves when they play the new My Team mode, whether it's the stories they engage with in Breaking Point, the story mode within the game. And of course, the big connection for us this year is to the F1 movie as well, the Apple F1 movie. So again, the theme being stories, and also this year we've been able to engage with Lewis Hamilton as well as an icon, and obviously there's not many drivers who have a more storied career than Lewis Hamilton.
Yeah, well, as you can see maybe by my silhouettes there, Oldsmobile, for some reason I have a unhealthy obsession with their last car. So I always play my team mode, and I make myself the Oldsmobile team with their old race color. So look forward to doing that again. I love the My Team. There's a lot of car-based careers, even with actual series, but this one, it's easy enough to do, yet it's also so in-depth and engaging, which is why I like it. Because I hate when things are like too simple, I can't customize enough, and then some that get so caught up in the tiny, most finite details, it just is overwhelming. So yeah, I look forward to trying out the new one.
Lee, I have a question about the career mode, because like Mike said, it's like one of the most in-depth and in my mind one of the selling features of the F1 games. How much input do you get from the drivers when it comes to things like I apologize in advance because it's been a few years since I've played, but I remember having to do interviews in the career mode. So how much feedback do you get from the drivers about implementing that in a way that is engaging but also realistic?
Yeah, we're very lucky that we do have the opportunity to film with several drivers, usually around this period, but also we do get access to them throughout the year as well. So we get feedback from both drivers and engineers, and that's not just from the race teams, that's also from the sim teams as well, because they bring really great insights. Last year, I got to spend some time with Max Verstappen, whose insights are probably the most unique because he's such a massive sim racer, and obviously at the moment, the best Formula One driver out there. So it's really great to get those insights, and having somebody who can relate them to what they experience in a game compared to what they experience in real life is super beneficial. But we also get really good insights from the engineers as well. So we have engineering contacts on several of the teams who will share limited data with us so that we can compare essentially whether we're delivering our lap times in the same way that a Formula One car in real life would deliver those lap times. If, for example, our ERS implementation needs to be adjusted to match what they do within the sport. So in 24, we had a new ERS system, which feedback was it's actually not working exactly how they would use it in the sport. So this year, we've made changes to ERS so that actually works more in line with what the teams and the drivers are telling us.
Well, you just kind of answered the question I was going to ask is how much access do you have to the teams and drivers, because it is so realistic, and I couldn't imagine it would work if you didn't. So, and you said all year round, which makes sense because their season is sort of almost a third in, I guess we'd say, when the game's being released. And then I assume you start working on the next one right away, or do you get a little bit of a gap before you have to get back to getting at, thinking of next year?
Yeah, so we actually up to this point we have 2 teams essentially, not 2 full teams, but we have the large team who at the moment will have just completed 25, and then there will have been a smaller team who would have been working on the title that's coming ahead of 25. So then the team will sort of move around, and the size of the team moves. Obviously, the central resources that always deliver things like the tracks, the cars, the physics, the AI, those are central resources, but the actual gameplay teams, the teams that deliver the core experience of the game, they will be flip-flopping between who's delivering which year. So that way we find it's more effective. We get to plan a lot further ahead. We get to implement much bigger, much deeper features, and that's a model that we employed sort of from 2019, and you'll see from then, that point forward, the game's grown significantly every year.
You kind of alluded to this already, but with the younger drivers coming, and a lot of them are either sim racers or gamers like Max and Lando and whatnot, do you find it's helping the game more because they've actually probably played it and they know little aspects to fix here or there, where maybe some of the older drivers that never played games would not be able to relate their info to you?
It's interesting. So we've definitely sat down with drivers who've never really played our game and weren't really big into games, but it's amazing how quickly they suddenly find it very natural, because we try and build a game that feels natural and relatable, because a car should feel natural and relatable. Anybody who drives fun cars knows that they feel at one with the car and they can push it and drive it aggressively and manipulate how the car feels and moves around beneath them. And that's something that you see from all Formula One drivers, whether they've played a video game or not, or whether they've played a video game on a race seat with a wheel and pedals. You certainly get, obviously, the likes of Max or Lando or Alex Albon's another good example. They're very familiar with that sort of setup, but it doesn't take the drivers who are less familiar any longer to sort of really get to grips with it. And I think in the past we've had drivers drive tracks like Miami, for example, which has got walls around it, or Vegas when they're in new circuits, and within laps they're inches off the walls and then centimeters and millimeters off the walls within just a few laps.
Oh wow. Slightly switching gears, since we're talking about drivers, it must be frustrating. You spend all this time building this game, and then a couple races in the season, team's like, nope, that driver's out, new driver, and you're like, oh man, just spent all this time making the models for that driver.
It happens. It's exciting for the sport. It's exciting for us. We generally get it right, but sometimes there are some changes, and we always like to give the driver who gets the most wheel time in the sport the limelight in the game. So, but we always try and ensure that we stay as accurate as possible to the sport.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, like I said, things change. It's exciting. You can't do much about it. So, um, with the launch coming up, well, again, when this is aired, it just happened. Early access has already happened as we record this. How has the feedback been? Have people noticed the differences? Have they liked certain things more? Maybe not like some things as much?
I mean, so far we've been having a really great week. So we've been obviously tracking the feedback, the sentiment. We've been scouring the reviews for anything that we might want to act on from this point. But it's been incredibly positive. Obviously, my team being a major new feature has been really well received. Breaking Point, people know what to expect from Breaking Point, but the story kicks it up a notch this year. The on-track experience has some additional, elements that feed into that. So Breaking Point's going down really well. But of course, the core of the game being the handling and how the AI race against the player have both been really well received this year. We made big changes in 24 to bring in some new elements to the physics, and this year was our opportunity to really refine them and build a model that we think delivers a great racing experience, fun to drive cars, hard on the limit, but great to build up to that position. And of course, how the AI race as well. This year, I think I mentioned ERS and how we've made changes to ERS for the driver, for the player. The AI will now utilize ERS in a way more active way than they ever have done. They'll really be utilizing it in those scenarios where they're defending or they're attacking. And of course, if they're doing that amongst themselves, that's a great opportunity for the player to pounce, because they're burning up that battery in a battle. So you really get to feel that ebb and flow of the race that you see when you watch the sport.
That's a really excellent point about the AI racing each other, because I feel like that's something that we kind of overlook when we're playing games, right? It's like we just think about us racing the AI, but if they're also mixing it up, that sounds like a blast.
Yeah, it's when I'm racing the AI and you see them close to, they may be 2 or 3 seconds ahead, and you see that there's a group of them, you think, well, there's an opportunity, because they're going to be holding each other up. They're going to be pushing each other along, but there's going to be drivers that are defending, there's going to be drivers that are attacking, they're going to be off the racing line through corners, and that gives you the opportunity to close up the gap and get into the battle.
Wow. Mike, I have another question about the game. Do you think When we see the major regulation changes, like all the new cars and stuff every couple of years, does that create a lot more workload for the team, or because you're so embedded, do you find that it still just kind of all works out to be the same overall throughout the years?
No, it definitely does add more work. It depends on what those changes are. So it could be something that our physics model already caters for.
Mhm.
But ultimately, there's then the additional things like the rules that we need to implement in the game. So there's often track markup involved. So if you look at what they're bringing in with the new active aero components that are going to be coming in 26, there'll be work that comes off the back of that. If you look at what happened previously when they moved to the turbo hybrid era, we had engines in the game that we built which didn't have the technology to deliver a hybrid turbo system. So we had to build that in the physics. So that was a significant technical innovation that we had to build into our physics model. So it depends on what that innovation is. And as I say, the knock-ons are also, we need players to understand what's happening. So there's then VO, there's audio, there's the on-track markup, there's what we do with the on-screen interface as well. All of those things, need to tie those innovations together for the players.
So we won't get into next year because that's a whole other game to come. But going back to the one you talked about with the Turbo R. So I assume you're signing a ton of NDAs with different teams and engineers to get the info. But do you get any of the specs before they start revealing them to the public to start working on this, or do you have to wait till like January, February to then really like get the specs on the cars and start going at it?
So we start building the cars as soon as the rules are released. So we have the same access as the teams do to those. So the teams will obviously get the rules for the sport, the technical regulations, and we'll start to build their cars based on that. We do the same. We also have contacts within Formula One who will give us an early heads up on areas that they're considering for the future that might make it into the rules. So we can at least have an early heads up. But essentially, we start to build the tech that we require when the rules have been solidified, so we know what we're going to be building in the same way that the teams do. And then when the season starts, that's when we get the real insight as to how well we've judged the performance of each of the teams, and also how the laps are delivered, how that performance is, how it manifests on track.
I got just one more question about the game, and then we'll talk about a bit about cars. One of my favorite videos I watch every year is the F1 when the drivers reveal their ratings. Do you watch those, or do you just try to ignore that because you don't want to hear what feedback they have?
Oh no, I love watching those because they're great reaction videos, and I think the one we did this year was so creative, and it's funny, and as well like some of the drivers, the reactions were absolutely fantastic. I thought Albon and Sainz were so good in their interaction there with I'm better than the GOAT, I think was Carlos's response, better than Lewis Hamilton in some of the stats. And that's really, it's just entertaining, and it just shows that they take it in the spirit with which it's meant.
Oh, that's good because
Yeah.
I mean it's just for fun. It's a game, but you're trying to make it realistic. But yeah, I figure they took it without getting too serious about it. It's just like other sports games where you're being rated. Same sort of vein. Do you hear back from teams sometimes? They say, "Oh, you didn't design that model of the car quite right," or "That doesn't look how it's supposed to," or are they usually pretty good with that?
So we're generally always ahead of the game on that. So the cars are built from reference that the teams supply, and the teams are then shown that reference in the final model before we actually release the game. So at that point, we have no concerns there because the teams have already signed off on the models that we've created.
How hard would it be if they're going to do special liveries in a race to put that in? Like if you were told in advance you could do it, I doubt it would be something you'd do on the fly.
I mean, there's obviously a time to create those liveries. There's a period of time that they have to be tested internally, and then those versions of the game, not to get into the real nooks and crannies of development, but once they've been tested, those builds then have to be submitted to Microsoft, Sony, and tested, and then they get released to the public. So there's a window of time between when we are made aware of the content and when we can release the content. But you'll have seen in previous games, and you'll see in this one that special edition liveries are something that we really do love and love to get behind. So it's something you'll definitely see more of in F1 25.
Yeah, I mean, I think everyone who plays the game will relate. It's great when you turn it on, you're like, oh, there's a download or an update. I wonder what we're getting. I wonder what's in this new update. And then you'll see some of the cool liveries that are either coming up or you just saw in a race. So that's always really cool.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's something the teams are doing so much more as well at the moment, and there's some real stunners.
Yeah.
I have one other game question, and then Mike, I swear we can, and Lee, I swear we can talk about the regular car stuff. But the classic cars that have shown up in games throughout the years, from a license perspective and jumping through all the hoops of that, how hard is it to include the classics, or is that not too difficult?
I mean, we've included classics on several occasions now, so we kind of have the contacts in place. There's always going to be challenges around things like cigarette and alcohol advertising was prevalent back during those eras. Those aren't things that we'll include in game. But you know, we're pretty versed in how we go about licensing content, because you know there's content across the game that's licensed that's not necessarily like F1 movie, for example, this year. You know, that's a great relationship we've built there with Apple to be able to bring that into the game.
Excellent.
We'll anticipate looking to see if there's a Brad Pitt unlockable character at some point.
Yeah,
during
or at
the
least
game.
a Brad Pitt helmet.
You can drive as Sonny Hayes in the game.
Nice. All right. I'm sold. Okay, so we talked very briefly before we started about cars and all of our love of cars. So were you born into like a car loving family, or is it something you developed on your own?
I think I developed it on my own. It was my mum always tells the story that when I was young, my dad's father had a big estate car, a Peugeot. It was a huge thing, a sort of a 7-seater, and I would just randomly tell people walking across car parks that my granddad owned a Peugeot. You know, and that was like just as a small child, completely random. So from a young age, I was identifying cars, and I was able to name cars, and I could work out what car was just by the shape of the headlights at night. You know, it was just one of those things that just happened. And all of my toys were car based. I had toy cars, I had a car mat, you know, I had a sit on Formula One car that my granddad bought me. So I think it was from a very, very early age, there was something about cars that just got me, but it certainly didn't come from anybody in the family.
So it sounds like we have very similar stories. And yes, car mats. I remember just spending hours with the Hot Wheels on the car mat. My thing was I'd make parking lots. I'd just park cars. I wouldn't even drive them. But okay, so fast forward a couple of years. Now you're a teenager and you want to get cars and potentially work with cars. What was the first car that you got?
So very British car. It was a Vauxhall Astra, a 1984 1.2 litre Mark II Vauxhall Astra in red. And I was the last owner of it because it was on its last legs. It literally, unlike modern cars, which at 10 years old, they're still pretty fresh, that car was tired. It had a tough life.
Yeah. I think that's the first car I ever rode in when I went to the UK. It wasn't an 84. It would have been something in the early 90s. But I remember seeing it. I was like, oh, that's a cool little car. And then I tried to get into the driver's seat, forgetting that I needed to get to the other side of the car. So how did you go from someone who loves cars to working here, you know, being one of the key developers of the F1 game, one of the biggest franchises?
Yeah, I mean, I'll have to give you a super abridged story as to how it came about, because there's a lot in between. But going from getting into the games industry at 16, my interests in life were cars and video games, and I wanted to pursue one or the other. I had some time working on some car games when I was just at my start of my career on SNES. I worked on a couple of car games, and then fast forward to when Codemasters acquired the studio I worked for, Swordfish Studios, and they started developing they were looking for a team to develop Formula One. I made it my mission to get onto the Formula One team because I couldn't face the thought of being in a studio that was developing a Formula One game and not being involved. And then from sort of 2008 to today, it's been a journey.
Oh wow, that's a good run for sure.
Yeah,
like I just had a job period. Never mind being on such a cool franchise that whole time.
Yeah, racing games. There's not a lot. There's like Dan Greenwald and Kazunori Yamauchi, and that's and Lee, and you guys are like the three who have stayed in the same spot for well over a decade.
Yeah, I've never thought about that. I've never met Kaz, but I've met Dan several times, and we always have a lot in common.
I met Kaz a couple times just through this job, and yeah, it is interesting because that wasn't a thing. Like it's such a new-ish industry. I mean, I'm talking 20, 25 years, but like video games didn't have yearly new versions or successors. It was like there's just this game and that was it. So That's very cool. So there are two car questions we ask everybody. I'll ask the first one. What is the favorite car you've ever owned?
Ooh, I guess that there's different ones based on the period of my life, but the current one, I actually, my current car is my favorite car I think I've owned. Along the line, notable mentions: I had a Peugeot 306 GTI 6, probably the greatest hot hatch I'd owned. A Renault Clio Trophy. I owned a lot of Renault Sport Clios for a while. I had a BMW M2 competition for a while. That was amazing. But I've got a Porsche Cayman 4-litre GTS at the moment, and it's pretty much right up there with something that I've dreamed about of owning for most of my life. So
Yeah, those cars are fantastic.
What color is the Cayman?
it's Arctic grey.
Ooh, okay.
Yeah, and it's got
Like
the full fixed bucket carbon seats, and it's
nice.
Yeah, it's
Like we enjoy driving them here, but your roads are so much better for a car like that. Like that's just the perfect kind. I can see why you got into so many hot hatches too, because those cars, like I remember just driving to the bar with a friend when I was there, and I couldn't like it's like, this is your commute. This is amazing. My commute's like 75 stoplights in a straight line. So
yeah. I mean, what
awesome.
you can't see. What you can't see is that around me, I've got 173 scale models of some of my favorite cars that I've owned, including a couple that were actually custom done by Mini Champs. So they're the actual replica of my car.
Oh, that's so cool.
Yeah,
really
Mini
cool.
Champs will customize a model for you. I've got, I think, a 1/18th, or is it one scale M2 competition over my shoulder, which has got the right number plates, the right brake caliper color, the right wheels.
That's awesome.
Wow. I was just thinking I needed something else that I should spend my money on relating to car hobbies. And
there you go. Yeah, I'm thinking of all my weird, obscure cars that I missed that I could make into models. So that leads into our other question: what is the one car that got away? The one that you wish, you know what, I should have never sold that.
I mean, in some ways, it was the 306 GTI 6 because it was a short-lived thing because I had a company car just after that. So it was like that was something I'd lusted after, and at that time, it was one of the ultimate hot hatches. Probably the Clio Trophy. It was one of 500. Mine was number 007 of the run of 500 cars, which made it incredibly rare. I wasn't in a position to keep it. I wanted a newer car, and I swapped it for a newer Renault Sport, a new Renault Sport Clio to replace it. So that car now is probably worth more than double what I sold it for, and is generally a hot hatch icon. So probably that one.
That's a theme on this show. Everyone who mentions the one they got rid of, it's one that they could never buy again because of how much money. We had Paul from the UK. He had a 22B at one point, and now what they're worth is ridiculous. And
that's a little bit more expensive than my Clio, even.
But it was funny because I think he said he sold it for something like £30,000 or something like that, and he's like, you can't get it for like 10 times that now.
Yeah, at the time it was like, wow, someone paid that much for it. And we had someone from over here in North America, Myron, on, and what was the car he sold? And now it's worth millions of dollars. And he's like, I should have kept that. But,
356.
Yes, that
was it.
Yeah, he had an original 356, and he was like, I got rid of it. Nuts.
You never know, right?
Mine wasn't quite on that scale. I think I paid like 15,000 for it new. And then I sold it for like 7,000 a few years later, and it had a hard life. It had done a lot of track days. It had seen a lot of action, and it was getting tired. And I sold it, and I think I sold it for about 7,000. And now you couldn't buy one for probably less than sort of 12, 13. I don't think, in good condition.
Yeah, I mean, which is sort of like my SVX. I sold it, and I want one back. But those are still cars that are attainable. I mean, they're worth more than maybe I want to spend right now. But yeah. That's why I like the more relatable cars. Keep my sights down. So before we let you go, since we're still talking about cars, is there one car out there that you still hope to own one day? Like it reasonably. Not, I mean, we all want to own these cars that we can't afford, but is there one that, maybe when the time's right, you'll probably end up getting?
It's a GT3 Touring. I'm a Porsche guy. I always have been. I've always wanted one my entire life. When I bought my first one, was like a massive milestone for me, and I still regularly look out the window at my current one, and a GT3 Touring is probably where I would aspire to get to within a vaguely realistic sort of level.
Mm-hmm.
You've driven that, right, Kyle?
I have.
Yeah, I didn't get to drive the Touring. I've just driven the regular one, but he's told me it's really good.
I mean, I said it was really good, but also I've been fortunate enough to drive a lot of those. And for me, it was the 718 Spider that was the top one. It is better than the 911s because I just like a mid-engine car. So I think the Cayman is fantastic.
Yeah, the reason I went for the Cayman after the M2 was because this is the second Cayman I've had, was I wanted a naturally aspirated car. I'd had my fill of turbos and I wanted a naturally aspirated car, and I didn't need the seats, so and I wanted the Cayman. I just thought it was gorgeous, and I wanted I mean, I do want a 911, but it didn't deliver what I wanted. Like, it would have been a turbocharged 3.6 as opposed to the 4-liter NA. And then I did the Porsche experience at Silverstone, and I was like, this is just phenomenal. The balance, the traction, the way the thing stops, everything about it is just, it's just perfect.
Yep.
You bring up a good point. Like, this is sort of the last of the naturally aspirated Porsche sports cars because, well, we don't know what's going to happen to the Cayman. It seems to change every couple of months what direction exactly it's going to go, but there's a good chance that it will be turbo or hybrid or something. So hold on to that car. Maybe that might be the car that 20 years from now you can flip for double the money.
It could be the M2 Comp was the one that I kept the longest of pretty much any car I've owned, and that was a tough act to follow. And it wasn't until I could get into a Cayman that I felt I could part with that. So I have no intention of this going anywhere anytime soon.
Well,
good to hear.
I don't blame you.
Yeah,
I too would be holding on to it. Well, thank you so much for your time, and you've just made me want to get F125 even more. So I will be downloading that hopefully this weekend and testing it out, and all the best with the rest of the launch of the game. And next year's going to be a lot of work, I'm pretty sure, for you. So good luck on that too.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks so much, Lee.
Cool. Absolute pleasure.
Okay, once again, joining us is Colum to talk F1. When you hear this, our listeners and viewers, Catalunya will be done. But for us, we're in between it and Monaco, so we will talk a bit about Monaco. I will put in this, though, that F1 should run the Catalunya rallycross course. Dirt tires. Okay. That'd be awesome.
Perfect.
Anyway.
Red Bull ran a F1 car with like snow tires once, or chains, I think, and they ran it up.
I remember that.
So anything is possible. That I think there would be one-use cars, but hey, why not? So this is I stole this off of Twitter. Apologies to whoever I stole this from. I wasn't paying attention. This is a how to make the Monaco race better. Sick Hot Wheels style jump. This sounds like rallycross, actually. Just it seems like that race was the usual in one sense, but maybe worse in another sense. It's just everyone's sort of bitching about look, it was a bad race. Monaco shouldn't be on the calendar anymore. I feel like I'm forced to agree with this. Like, there's just no way. And I see all these there were all these professional drawings of how people could actually make it a better race and things they could do, but that's not going to really change anything. And so this was
Monaco's not going to rebuild their waterfront for a race.
No, it seems unlikely. So I just don't know. It doesn't seem like it has a fit in Formula One anymore. I don't know how you solve that, right? Like, unless you change the whole friggin' city. And those bazillionaires are not going to let them do that. So
I loved. I think Max Verstappen said that it was like Mario Kart. They should have bananas to throw out, and George Russell was saying they should have raced the Lego cars that they did at that other Grand Prix. So I have two solutions for this race. One that's not really ever going to happen, but would make it more interesting. That straight where the sick jump is coming out of the tunnel, even into the tunnel. The roof of the tunnel and all the way out should be a second track. So when you come around the corner, either you go up top or you go down below, and then you can't hold people in, and then you merge at the end right before, like after the pool or something. Just build and it's Monaco. They're so rich they could make it like come out of the ground or temporary. So it's not sitting there blocking everyone's view.
All right. Do you have any realistic? Have any realistic ones now?
So the realistic one is, like you said, can it as a race. But I know Monaco means so much. So like other racing series, make this some sort of all-star race, and you could have some sort of fun rules or something. You race old cars. It could be just, like a time attack, something. But yeah, as a flat out race, like everyone loves watching qualifying here. So bank on that as a celebrity fun. Maybe you can bring back some old racers to try to, beat the current guys and just have some fun with it. And
I like the sort of like an all-star game, right? Like have
Yeah.
it something like that where honestly, if you got all those guys in different vehicles, right? Put them all in like make it like a they used to do it for some of the European races where everyone drove the same like Renault or whatever, or
Mhm.
Toyota at the Long Beach race used to always have like GR86s. Basically put everybody in a spec car for some shenanigans, right? But they'd still if you made it. I don't know if it should have points or not, but make it where people are actually going to still fight each other for the win. I mean, they'll do it just because they want to be the winner, right? If you make it too silly like Lego, then nobody cares. So I drive into a wall, it's funny, ha ha ha. I can be last, and that's fine. But if you still make it bragging rights, have somebody go. That could be it's like a what do they call it? Like in football, the Pro Bowl, something like that, right?
Yeah, like not that I want F1 to be NASCAR, but NASCAR's done that for years. They have an all-star race, and it's easy. It's Monaco. There's money everywhere. Make the purse a couple $1 million or even $1 million, and these guys are going to be out there racing hard. And I was thinking, like time trial stuff, but you're right. Put them in slow old cars, ones that you will be able to get around. Like make them real slow. Just have some fun with that.
You can go fast on those streets. I have a funny story. What's his name? Valentino Balboni, who was the former test driver of Lamborghini. He actually the like Lowe's hairpin there or whatever it's called at the Fairmont in Monaco. I was in Monaco for like this crazy supercar event many years ago, and we went for a drive in a Gallardo at the time, and he literally drifted that corner during the middle of the day. Like we did the whole thing in a full drift, like in 2:00 in the afternoon on like a Tuesday, and it was like you can get pretty wild if you want to. So maybe not in the F1 car, but there's good fun to have. So but maybe just before we go on is just that I loved the thing that I enjoyed about the race the most this year was the shenanigans of the teams basically screwing with the FIA rules, saying, "Oh, we're going to make 2 pit stops to make it better racing," and that didn't make it better racing. It actually made it potentially worse. But it was almost like they were screwing with the FIA and just being like, dumb rules, we'll have dumb racing. So.
Yeah, like something pitted on lap 1, and George Russell was like, "I'm gonna go to the end of the race and pick because I'm out of contention anyway." It wasn't exciting, and it's one of those things you can't fix with modern cars. Maybe the next year when the cars are slightly smaller, I still don't think it'll improve. Anyway, moving on.
Yes.
So the flexi wing rules are coming into effect, and everyone thinks this is only going to affect McLaren, but I don't think they're the only ones that are doing this. They're just the ones that are winning, so they're in the spotlight.
Sure, yeah, and it may be the most to lose in that sense, right? It's funny. So by the time we're on here now, and if you've had a chance to look, but free practice 1's already over. Norris was fastest in free practice 1, so it didn't seem to have any big impact yet. So everyone was, including myself, I think, probably saying, "Oh, this is going to change everything. It's a big reset." But they've progressively made these changes over the course of the year, and so they've gotten sort of stiffer, and the rules have gotten stricter and stricter. So we'll see, because I think I don't know, like if this does have any real impact on maybe on race pace instead of qualifying. But it's certainly it seems like the biggest news. I read through all the articles. There's a lot of it's super minute details, right? 10 millimeters of flex versus 50 millimeters. And, I didn't need to get into that, but it feels like it's sort of the biggest rule change we've had in a while, or at least rule clarification, I guess. So.
Yeah. So many people complain about McLaren doing this for so long. If you think the money and this expertise and smarts that the other teams haven't copied or done something similar, like, come on, everyone's doing it. So now they're just trying to, slow it down. So anyway, moving on. That doesn't look like Brad Pitt.
That's not Brad Pitt. So this is totally trivial. But there was a story. So this is not, I don't really care about this, that the PepsiCo is a big sponsor now. Like, who isn't a sponsor? Formula One announced they're doing something with Disney. Now they've got this PepsiCo sponsorship with Doritos and all the other sort of sub brands. And I just thought this was funny to share, that those who are listening and not watching won't be able to see this, but they have all these cool shots in their promo teaser showing the brands and everything else. And then there's this shot of this gentleman staring out of his visor, one of the Formula One drivers. You'd think they'd use actors or somebody else like that, but from the bridge of the nose here, you can clearly see this is Daniel Ricciardo. So is he involved in this somehow? Will he do some cool sponsorship stuff for F1 in the future? I don't know, but I saw that and I was like, I know that nose.
You know what? Brand ambassador for Pepsi, like the face of their campaign, and he goes to all the races still and does stuff. Like I'm sure, it gets him to the races and he gets to just kind of still be working, but he won't have to focus on the racing part. Yeah, maybe it's a good mix for him.
Yeah, I just thought it was too funny not to share. And I think maybe this is the last item.
Yeah, last
was,
item, MoneyGram.
Hirakawa is back. He was in free practice 1 for Haas, or should I say Toyota, in the for the race here in Spain. And to me, this is my theory that I keep pushing, and I think Toyota is just pushing and pushing again that they really want to get more serious about Formula One and get more involved. And here's my now prediction is not just that Toyota will get more involved, but that actually Hirakawa will be racing for Haas next year and not Ocon. So I'm gonna make that step because he was in for Ocon, and I feel like Bierman's, unless he goes to somewhere else, like another, I don't know, some bigger team. I feel like he's part of the Ferrari family. So there's my prediction. He actually had a little off-track excursion in FP1, but he got it going again. So Toyota's coming. That's what I think.
Yeah, no, I agree. You're right, Bierman, he's the Ferrari family development, but if Toyota becomes the branded name of it, I don't know if they're going to go full into manufacturer of engines, but we've talked about this before, how like Infinity was using Renault engines or whatever. So he's a Ferrari, but then they might convince him to stick around, and they could, try to push a big team, but we'll see.
Yep. Yeah. I think it's a little step. I don't think Toyota will be entering next year, but I think that their participation will continue to grow to the point where I think they'll bring a full scale team, but I think it'll be a little while. So.
All right. Well, we'll have to wait and see. And as people are listening to this, they'll know what happened in Spain, but we don't. So I'm looking forward to this weekend. And thanks for joining us once again, Colum.
Thanks for having me.
Okay, so to wrap up the Auto Guide Show brought to you by eBay Motors, we'll take a quick look at what's ahead. I'm in a big travel gap right now, which isn't too bad. I got lots to catch up on. So I'm going nowhere next week. What about you, Kyle?
I'm also staying put for a week, which is nice. And yeah, we've just gotten to stay home and drive some trucks.
Yeah. Yeah, so this week I had the Frontier Pro 4X and you had the
Tacoma Trailhunter, the Toyota, which I've driven pretty extensively over the last year, but it's always fun to get back into.
So we're comparing them, obviously, but it's not a traditional comparison because we know there's a giant gap and they're sort of for different purposes, but they're both sort of the top trim of their trucks, especially when you get into off-road. So it's sort of like, what does it offer and does it make the truck good and relevant? We'll have that out in a little bit. I don't want to spoil it, but the Frontier's decidedly old school, which is no surprise because it's an old truck, but I kind of like that I have switches and toggles. I don't care if they look like they're 15, 20 years old. They work and I can push them.
It's true. The old school charm is real.
Yeah, so that was this week. And the next week, I will be having a short drive of the Lamborghini Urus SE, which it's been over a year since I got to go to the unveiling of it and heard all about it, and I've been waiting ever since, especially being the plug-in. I want to see how this extra electric boost, especially off launch, will be like, and also just test it out, if I drive it unlike a Lamborghini and putt around, how far can I really go on a charge?
Yeah. So you're in a 700 horsepower SUV next week? Well, what do you know? I'm also in a 700 horsepower SUV next week, except mine is slightly differently shaped. Mine is the box that yours comes in.
And yours is dragging around an extra car's worth of weight.
Yeah. So I will be in the very large Escalade IQ. I drove it very, very briefly at one of those auto show things where you can drive it around inside. And so now I get to spend a week with it. And I am fascinated because in my mind, this is what makes sense in terms of switching over to EVs is a giant luxury SUV. So I'm honestly kind of excited, provided it fits in my underground parking.
And we have you driving it because, I've driven the Hummer. I've driven the Silverado twice. And this is all the same platform with the massive undisclosed battery of around 200 kilowatt hours. So yeah, it's time for you to, see, and you're going to see the fanciest one and to see how amazing the rear steer is and helping make something this big livable. Like in the Hummer and the Silverados, it's just so well done and for a vehicle that size, and it helps life so much.
Yeah, after spending a week with the Tacoma Trailhunter and its turning circle, I am looking forward to that.
Yeah. So yeah, and I hope to see it at some point. I had a chance to drive it and I missed it, so you have to tell me what it's like, and
Maybe we'll meet up and do a drag race.
Yeah. I don't think Lamborghini nor Cadillac would like that, but that would be very interesting because I honestly, it would depend on length. Yeah. Obviously, the Urus would run away at some point, but does the instant torque, even though it weighs like as much as a house, get a slight jump for the Caddy? I don't know. I honestly don't. I probably not.
It'll ripple the asphalt away from it, so it'll actually slow you down, and that's how I get the lead. Yeah.
Spitting gravel at me. I got it. All right. Well, that's it for this week. We'll be back again next week. Until then, have a good week.
So long, everybody.
Picture this. You're halfway through a DIY car fix, tools scattered everywhere, and boom, you realize you're missing a part. It's okay, because you know whatever it is, it's on eBay. They've got everything: brakes, headlights, cold air intakes, whatever you need, and it's guaranteed to fit, which means no more crossing your fingers and hoping you order the right thing. All the parts you need, at the prices you'll love, guaranteed fit every time. eBay, things people love.